Okay, so my name's Amy Walker, and I'm the head of digital communities here at the charity Missing People, and I've been here for 11 years. And I'm actually here with my colleague Paul Joseph. Paul, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Paul Joseph, the head of helplines and reconnections and missing people. I've been working here since 2011, and before that, volunteered on helpline for a few years from 2003.
Cool. So very long experience with the charity.
Yeah.
So obviously we're both from Missing People. We've both been here for quite a while, but could you tell everyone else who doesn't really know about us, like, what is Missing People? What do we do?
Yeah, so we're the national charity for anyone affected by missing. So that could be people who are worried about a family member who's disappeared or they don't know where they are. Adults who may be thinking they need to leave home or go missing or might be missing, children who are running away or think of running away. So kind of both ends of that, and we can offer support via our phone, text, email, live chat service. We also can help with publicity to try and help find people. We work with the police to create appeals, and we also have specific services working for young people affected by gangs and exploitation, and lots of other things. But our main thing is just basically being here for any of those people during that time of crisis, no matter how long they need us.
That's pretty awesome. One of the reasons we're still here, I'm guessing. So Missing People has been, so our phrase is that we're a lifeline for those impacted by missing, as you say, on all ends of the spectrum. And we've been that lifeline for nearly 30 years. Next year is one of our big birthdays. So one of the special things about us is our non-judgmental approach to anyone who's getting in touch, whether that's someone who's away from home, thinking of going away from home, feeling like they have to go from home, or the person who's worried about them, whether that's family, friends, colleagues, etc. And we have this approach called non-judgmental. Could you talk a bit about how we do that, basically? Because there's going to be big things that are being presented to the people in our services team, which comprises the helpline. How can we be non-judgmental? How does that work?
I think it starts with just knowing that the person who knows their story best is the person you're talking to. And even though you might quite quickly hear some things that sound familiar or remind you of other things or other situations or seem like common things, that actually, until you really get to talk to that person and find out what's going on, you don't know what their situation is. And it's also recognizing that there's lots of different things that can contribute to someone being in the situation they're in, and things that are in their control, things are out of their control, and actually the last thing they need is someone to say this is wrong, this is right, or kind of be judging them on decisions they're making on the situation they're in. And actually, for us to be there for them and them to trust us enough to then be able to support them, if we can just stay open-minded and let them speak for themselves, that's going to help them properly talk through their situation and then get to a point where they can maybe start thinking about what options may be available for them and just be open for getting some support.
And do you have any personal tips on things that you always say or do or don't say in those situations to make sure that people don't feel judged?
Yeah, I think it's really important. I think we all have an instinct in life to kind of when someone's saying something about anything, to kind of almost leap in and say what we know about that thing to validate that. So someone might say, I'm so fed up of my train journey every day with whatever, and we go, oh yeah, me too. My train's always late and something like that. It's kind of, I guess, conversationally, it's a way of kind of maybe involving ourselves in some situation, showing that we share that sort of understanding. But actually, in certain situations, that person can feel like you then actually cut them off from saying what's going on, and it's almost like you're presuming to know. So the really important thing is just to initially let someone listen. Sorry, is to initially just listen and let someone talk and ask those kind of questions that kind of help them with that. and maybe sort of reflect some of the words they've said back to them, repeat some of the things they've said back to them. And that way you're really only going on their experience, what they're telling you, and you're not putting yourself in the situation, because as soon as you start talking about things you think you know or things that you presume, then that's you and that's your experience, and then the conversation's not about them anymore, it's also about you, and that's not what we're here for.
Thank you, that's really great advice. And it, as you say, it's ways that we're taught to prove that we're listening is to go, oh, me too. But actually, like you say, that can just close things down, or just make you feel a bit too uncomfortable to keep going.
Yeah, and of course it's really important for people to know that you're there when they're talking to you. I mean, obviously we've all got used to very different ways of communicating since the pandemic, doing video stuff more, maybe not doing as much face-to-face stuff. And so it is important that you know, when we're talking to someone on the phone or when we're on a live chat, that although we're giving them space to talk about their story, they don't feel like they're kind of speaking into the void. So, you know, we use a term in the helpline, verbal nods, which is just the kind of like, okay, yeah. And just sort of, you know, like now we're nodding as we're talking to each other. It's the kind of phone version of that. So rather than feel like you need to leap in and kind of feel like you're validating someone's experience by sharing something that you know about that situation, just kind of, you know, sort of like saying, yeah, okay, yeah, and that sort of thing, that can let them know that you're there without putting yourself into the center of the conversation too much.
Great, thank you. And yeah, it makes a massive difference. And I know that I can be guilty of jumping in because I'm a fixer, and I've got a logical mind and a logical brain. I'm like, oh, I've got the answer for this, and you're getting in the way of actually listening.
And you know, that's a really normal thing. And also it's tricky for us because as well, you know, amongst our services, we can offer people practical advice. We can even help connect people to family members and pass messages. So there are certain things we can do. But it's almost like what we have to do is just hold back a bit and not start offering advice or offering options until it's clear that that person wants it, or they've kind of confirmed that they want it. Because if they don't, they're probably just then going to feel, oh, this is another person who's not listening to me. And you know, what we find through what we do is the power of having that space for someone to just listen to you and just to talk. And obviously, you know, we do talk to friends and we do talk to family members, and you know, fortunately, some of us have lots of people that we can trust and can talk to about things. Perhaps the people we talk to do as well. Maybe they don't. But the difference about talking to a service like ours is that we don't know that person, and also they're not worried about how we're going to respond. Obviously, if you're telling your friend something bad that's happened to you, that might upset them as well. If you're telling a relative about something bad that's been happening to you, that might upset them as well. So even though that's might be what someone's planning to do soon, if they can actually just use someone like us as a sounding board just to get it out. And actually sometimes, you know, our callers say, and people who are text and email us, they say that, wow, it's just been really good to just say that. And actually sometimes, you know, you get the thing out, and just to have that moment of something being said and something being acknowledged with someone who it doesn't know you, but also is there just for you, is giving you the time, is giving you the attention, is calm, is warm, that can make all the difference. And but of course, it's natural to always want to fix things. And so kind of what we probably do is, and you know, and it's probably a really good skill for anyone who's having a conversation with someone they're worried about. Of course, in your head, start thinking about what options there might be for them or what advice you might give. Maybe just park it there for a minute until you think they're ready to hear it, because for all you know, they've tried that, they've done that, and actually what they might be wanting from you is not advice, not information. It might just be for you to listen and then acknowledge what they're going through and say, wow, that sounds so hard. You know, I'm amazed that you're getting through that. Thanks for talking to me. What else can I do for you? How can I support you through this? And then let them say, rather than kind of just leap in. But you know, it is natural to want to kind of fix things, and so it's just about holding back a little bit.
And so for people who, after they've obviously watched this talk, are there phrases or courses or things they can look up? So I know there are some things such as we use terms like active listening or being
Yeah.
led. Are there a few things that they could look up, or that I can make sure there are links in? Because not everyone is going to be able to volunteer for us and get the benefit of your exceptional training.
I mean, I think it's, I think some of our principles about active listening kind of can be takeaways from this chat, really. And I think, um, as I say, active listening, because that means that the focus is on the listening, and that you're kind of not passively just hearing things, you're properly listening. And I think, stuff like we say that normally, I mean, we say, but this is what we've learned, and it's kind of known that really in a helpline call, normally it should be about 20% the call taker and 80% the caller. So if you think about that a bit, some of us do chat a lot and we tend to go on. Actually, if someone's talking, if you find yourself talking a little bit too much. Also, the kind of questions we use, what we use is what we call open questions. So we try to not have questions that lead to a specific answer, or just yes and no questions. Because if they're just yes and no questions, then the person can just say yes or no, and it can shut things down. So stuff like how is always very good. Like, oh, how are you feeling about that, or what, So we might say to someone, what was going on before you left home, rather than something like why did you leave home? Because weirdly, I don't know why. I'm using the term why, but why in a question can always feel like there's a little bit loaded, like as if it's a bit like it's almost like, well, why not? You should have done that. So it's maybe just thinking about that language a little bit. So yeah, what was going on, or how are you feeling about that, or what might make things a little better. So just think about the questions and language. Obviously, when we're talking face to face or talking on the phone, sometimes you're just coming out what you're coming out with. But of course, if you're on a chatting someone a message or texting, then actually you can have that bit more time to think about those words, and also think that actually if what you've written, if you think the person who's reading it is in their sort of lowest, most upset, feeling guilty, feeling anxious, whatever's going on for them, frame of mind, read what you've written in that tone or through that, and think how it might come across. So something like, why did you do that? That could sound really, although you're just saying it as like, oh, what, you're one to say, oh, why did you do that? With that sort of intonation, it could be seen as, why did you do that? So it's just thinking about that language and softening it and saying, okay, what was going on then, and then add a bit more to it. Don't just leave it with a question. Acknowledge something first and say, oh, that sounds like a real nightmare for you. So already the person knows that you're appreciating it's difficult, and then go on to add your question in. And maybe just don't do question, because that can make people feel a bit interrogated, or a bit like, so maybe, what we tend to do in our written communication, so text, email, and chat, is we might acknowledge what someone said and then ask a question gently, or even say, do you mind if I ask you this, or do you mind telling us a bit more about this? And even though I know, if I'm on a call, or my colleagues are texting or email or different things, there's certain information we're going to want to know, just to make sure we're giving the person the best advice and we're looking at their safety. So we might want to know how old someone is, for example, because of course how old they are makes it different in terms of how the law applies to them, or what options are available. What town or city they live in might help us know what services available, and kind of, certain situations like what sort of place they're in, are they somewhere safe, and that. However, although it's good for me to know that, to build up that picture, I kind of probably would want to do that across a series of messages rather than all in one go. So the person reads it and doesn't go, doesn't see it, blah, 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 blah. But tone is always, in written communication, tone is always a challenge. So my biggest tip, and I think this is not just in the helpline work in life, is just, if you can, just take that bit of extra time before clicking send, reread something, think about the state of mind the person is in, and if it could be read as being a bit negative, just soften it up a little bit, or just add something in there, or just, add something that helps that person know that you're on their side. And obviously, if they're a friend of yours, you'll know what that kind of thing is. It could be something a bit more light, not that you're making fun of their situation, but just kind of, to show that connection's there.
All really great tips. As you mentioned, the world has been pushed through a pandemic, and the way we communicate has moved from face-to-face to video chat to text chat and emails. And I think most of us have been guilty of getting into a communication stream, hopefully not in professional times, but definitely with friends, where things just got misunderstood. And just taking that extra bit of time can make, as you say, can make a massive difference. Whether you're supporting colleagues, whether you're supporting someone who's approached missing people for help, or whether, in my case, if I'm just having a chat with my wife and making sure that I don't end up saying something and it's being read back in a way that is not how I intended it to be communicated.
Yeah, and it is that bit of time and care, because obviously, most of the time the intent is really there and really positive, but it can so easily be lost if there's just a bit of, the language isn't quite right, or you've not really considered the sort of state of mind someone's in.
And do you have any tips on, so to be able to use that active listening to start the conversations, but via any form of written communication? So let's say you've noticed maybe a colleague seemed a bit low in a meeting and you just want to check in with them. How would you sort of start that so it doesn't sound, I don't know, you looked depressed or you looked sad, you just want to just check in, rather than accusing someone that some people may read that like maybe they weren't very active in the meeting, or that you're worried that they're not doing their job or something?
I mean, the reality is, if someone's having a tough time, whether it's in work or in their private life or whatever's going on, they're generally going to be more pleased by someone reaching out than someone not. And I think we tend to, me particularly, I'm like so British at times that I'm like, oh, I don't want to embarrass someone, or I don't want to overstep the mark or something like that. But actually, I've been through things in my life where, like, when my dad passed away a few years ago quite suddenly, and kind of like anything you get is really appreciated, even if you've not got the time to respond to messages. Just someone saying something to say they think about you really makes a difference. So I think starting that conversation is just something as simple as, didn't get to catch up with you properly in the meeting, but looks like you had a lot on your mind. How are things? Should we have a little catch up? And just kind of, letting someone know that you're there for you really. Sorry, that you're there for them. And I mean, of course, the tricky thing is we're all used to saying, how are you? And then just saying fine. And it's almost a bit of so maybe you have to be a bit more gently probing in your question, or just make your question a bit more related to the experience you just had being in a situation, seeing someone was a bit down, or, saying someone, you might be, out with some friends, and see that someone's a little bit quiet, and you can just say, oh, it was really great to see you. Didn't get a chance to catch up with you very much. How's it all going? You seemed a bit quiet, and something like that. And just, I think people appreciate people noticing things and picking up on things. And I think if you do, then that's a really good thing for them. That's, follow your instincts and kind of follow up on it, because, we all know nowadays, fortunately, it's becoming a lot more known about mental health, a lot more talked about. I'm not saying that, it's not like in the past 5 years, suddenly everyone's got serious mental health problems and they never did. So what I'm saying is, so weirdly, when I'm saying it's a good thing, it's because it's now people are starting to feel more comfortable talking about it. So a lot of people are going through things, and a lot of people will be going through things, and it won't be very obvious, or they might be people who are known as being strong and dependable and whatever. But so, so I think, if you consider yourself, if you pick up on something or something doesn't seem right, you're a gift to them. That's a really great thing to have happened. And don't worry about following up on that in your own style. And just if you can spend a bit of time to just think about your language and your wording, that can make all the difference.
Yeah, and you're totally right. We know that especially mental health is a significant factor which can lead to people go missing, and also really impacts those who are worried or concerned about someone who's missing. And as you say, there is a growing movement, which is great, to actually talk about it, to be more honest, to reach out, to start those conversations. And you've given some really good tips about how to start those conversations. But what about if you're the person listening? So how can we actively listen, but then also how can we make sure that we're okay in that? Because you might be hearing some really difficult things that maybe be personally triggering or make you really worried about someone.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think, we obviously within our work with our staff and volunteers, there's certain things we train people on around sort of resilience, and there's different things we can do to make sure people are okay. Like they have a debrief after difficult calls, someone checks in with them, we have regular meetings, we have supervision, that kind of thing. Obviously, in helpline work, we don't necessarily, part of what we do isn't following up with the people who contact us. The idea is that we're here for them when they need us, and if they want to come back to us, they do. But actually, we don't then call them back and say, "Oh, we spoke to you yesterday. How did that all work out?" Because they've now moved on from us, and actually, so it's quite weird sometimes to accept that you're just a little part of someone's journey. You don't know more. But obviously, when you're talking about people you do know and more personal situations, I think it's just about maybe putting in those little check-ins with someone. So if you're worried about someone, for your own well-being, just say, "Oh, is it right if I just give you a shout later on, or can you text me when you've done that, or when you've spoken to someone you've got home?" And then I think the other thing is, if there's someone else that they're okay for you to talk to about what's going on, so you can like debrief with your own partner or something. Sometimes, we have an assumption that people tell their partners everything anyway, and so that's fine. I've previously been accused of not doing that, and friends have told me things thinking my husband knows them all, and then he doesn't. And I'm like, well, no, why would I tell him? You didn't say I could. But that, and then also the other thing is, there are lots of tools there for online and different support services for people when they're anxious, when they're worried, when they're stressed out. But that's a really valid point, because you can easily, particularly if someone's going through a crisis, you can take a lot on yourself. So you just need to find your own way to kind of like breathe that through. And that might be, as I say, part of it, negotiating with the person, your friend or relative that you're helping or supporting, about levels of contact, and then also who else can be involved. And sometimes, and we know that with the people that we talk to, sometimes when families have got someone missing, they might between them work out that one person deals with the police, one person deals with the media, one person goes around putting posters up, the other person responds to all the people sending messages. So there's that sort of team thing about it. Or if someone's come back and they're still worried about them, it's just kind of like sharing that thing that's going on. So I think kind of like seeing what support networks you have, and making most of it is really helpful. But yeah, it's really valid that when you're looking out for someone who's having a tough time, or you're in a position where you're hearing a lot about it, it can be very impactful for you. So just do what you can to have that little bit of self-care.
And it's a word that I think some people shy away from, but it's okay to have boundaries, because the helpers, they need time to refill so they can keep helping as well.
Yeah. And in our work, it's really important. And, we're very clear that people come in, they start their shift at a set time, they have breaks at a certain time, they have debriefs, they finish at a certain time. There might be something that's ongoing, but there's then a colleague who's come in that gets passed on to, and that they're well looked after and don't burn themselves out, really. Because as you say, it's that you can potentially take so much on. And what we don't want is people who are then in a position where they're burnt out and they're not able to support people properly. So, and I think, I think also we all get very busy in life and stuff going on. I think sometimes it's just making sure you do still have that bit of space in time in your diary for, you. And, I say self-care and it makes it sound like I'm going to sort of be lighting candles and meditating and going all zen. For me, that might just actually be going for a run, going for a swim, kind of putting my phone down for a little while and just actually actively watching something on the telly, listen to a bit of music, that kind of thing, and finding that space. Obviously, going to the pub always helps, but again, sometimes drinking a lot and that kind of thing when things are tough might seem to help short term, but can kind of make you feel a bit worse later on. So I'd say that with caution.
Yeah, hangover is probably not the best way to try and manage emotional distress.
No.
Obviously, not to make light of anyone who does need to do that. So I think actually all of the points that I wanted to raise with you, we've kind of covered, which is great. And thank you again for your time. Do you have any tips, of bearing in mind we're coming up to the holiday season, and we know for lots of people that can be a really difficult time of year, especially. Do you have like any tips around the holiday season? So how to take care of yourself, how to open those conversations with people, anything that missing people are doing around this time of year?
Yeah, so I'd say as we're sort of coming up to the holiday season, it can be really difficult for some people. I kind of think, there's always lots of stuff out there of advertising and parties and this and getting glitzy new dresses and going to all this sort of stuff. And I think some people can feel a bit like that they should be living a certain type of lifestyle or not, or should be out there doing lots of things. And some people can feel lonely, and sometimes people can miss people as well. I mean, it's always a time of year where you will have memories. So if there's someone that's not with you anymore, you will think about them at Christmas. So I kind of think it's, look out for yourself during that time, sort of your well-being. And I kind of think, look out for if you're feeling lonely or someone else might be lonely. And there are different services there to support people who are going through loneliness at different times. And then on a practical level, I think, it's just recognizing it's a time of year where it's colder and darker. We're all out later. Some of us are out later. We might be partying in different things, in settings we don't normally party a lot at, work, different things like that. And just remember sort of personal safety and getting home safely and all that kind of stuff. Unfortunately, it is a time of year when, in our experience, there are more people who maybe go missing after being on a night out, just whether they decide, because I've had a bit of drink, to take a shortcut on the way back and maybe fall in some water, or put them in a situation where they're more vulnerable. So I kind of think any of that sort of planning ahead of a night out, just let plan how you're going to get home, even if you're going to stay on a bit longer and miss the last train. Make sure someone knows you're leaving the party, check in with someone, agree to send each other text messages when you get home, have a little WhatsApp group if there's some of you, and just kind of ping when you're back in and that kind of stuff. That can all make all the difference, really, because unfortunately a really good night out can easily turn bad sort of afterwards or on the way home, or if someone puts themselves in a situation that's a bit risky. So I think it's a case about looking out for yourselves and looking out for other people as well. And actually, if there's someone, if you're at the work party and there's someone who's a bit taking things a bit far and is in a little bit of a mess and you're worried about, and then it's fallen all over the place and they're about to go, maybe just say, make sure you put them into a taxi, an approved taxi, with someone who, certain taxi companies have now, you can track, someone can share their location with you, so you can make sure that they're getting home, and obviously make sure they're getting into a safe taxi and all that kind of stuff. But it's just all those little things about just, looking out for each other and making sure we're staying safe. And then I think on the other side, I was talking about, maybe people wouldn't feel lonely at Christmas, but of course, for us, missing people, it is a time when the families who've got someone missing will be thinking about them. You see all the adverts and all the TV programs, everyone sat around, and it's almost like that's when suddenly all the other family around, and it feels like there's the empty place at the table, and people find it very hard to go through those customs that we all go through, because it just doesn't feel the same without the person who's missing. And we have a certain amount of understanding of that, all of us, because of grief and loss and not having people there because they passed away. But there's something very different when it's someone who's missing as well, because there's not knowing where they are or how they are or what's happened to them means that you're a bit stuck in that situation. So whereas we might be able to you know, at my Christmas dinner, like raise a glass to my grandparents and my dad and different things, and think about them, because we've had a bit of time to kind of heal after grief and loss and things. Actually, for people who've got someone missing, there isn't that there. So, you know, which is really important. Why you know our helpline services and our family support service stay open throughout the whole Christmas period, because missing someone doesn't switch off because it's a bank holiday. And sometimes that's when there can be less other things going on to distract you, less other sources of support there. So we'd always just say to anyone who's struggling because of having someone missing or being worried about someone who's away, you know, get in touch with us. We've got a lovely team of warm, caring staff and volunteers who are there for that time and want to be there, because they know that it's a particularly difficult time of year for people.
Thank you. And yeah, of course. And although I'm sure a lot of people watching this will probably be, let's be honest, who's missing people? I've never heard of them. What do they do? And although we've given like an intro at the beginning about what we do, I think the impact of missing just isn't really known. Once this is fully edited, I will calculate how many people would have gone missing during our recording. But it's every 90 seconds. And the last estimation that we put together, that impacts around 1 million people a year, between those who are connected to the missing person and connected to loved ones worried about them. So a lot of people watching this may not realize that all of those things that you just spoke about, they might know someone actually who is going through that. And so if you don't know what to say, if you are that person and you don't know what to say, give them our number, give them our website, tell them to get in touch with us, because we will know what to say. Or if you'd like to know what to say, use our number, get in touch with us, have a chat with us.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, the difference that little bit of support can make, you know, and obviously it's not going to in the moment bring their person back. It's not about fixing something that can't be fixed, but it is about people just being able to feel a bit stronger to get through it and be supported, and you know, and have that support. So yeah, if people can direct people towards us to get that support, that's brilliant. And you know, we'd always want to be there to support anybody who's affected.
Great. Well, before we wrap up, any magical thoughts or anything else you'd like to share with everyone who's been watching this on this year's Tech Calendar?
I'd say thank you for watching and spending the time learning a bit more about what we do and how we work. And as I said earlier, just, you know, just take that little bit of time to notice what's going on, and you know, and think about other people, and think about what you might want to say. And actually that little bit of time can just make all the difference. So yeah, but I hope this has been useful and interesting.
Thanks, Paul.